This is Apple's new $6,000 W900X professional graphics card with 32 gigabytes of video memory, 5,120 stream processors, over 22 teraflops of graphics performance, and this is Apple's M1 Mac Mini, coming in at $900 for not only the graphics card, but the whole dang computer. Today, we'll see if Apple's silicon is really that revolutionary, or is it just fast when compared to slow Intel processors and graphics? I think that you guys might already know the answer to most of these tests, but stick around and let's have some fun. This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the best way to make an amazing website. As you guys know, I still have my Mac Pro because even after 9 months, nobody wants to buy it, and the only person I can blame is myself for making videos like this one. Now, since I still have, I decided to see just how powerful the new $6,000 graphics card is compared to the Mini Beast, which under full load uses less power than this MPX graphics card just sitting there idle. Of course, to use this $6,000 beast, you also need a Mac Pro, which itself starts at $6,000, but with that, you can't just buy the base model. It will bottleneck this card like crazy. So in a real world scenario, you're looking at least $12,000 or $16,000 as my Mac Pro is currently configured without the Afterburner card. Now that does include 192 gigabytes of RAM, which costs $3,000 from Apple or $1,100 on Amazon, compared to just 16 gigabytes in the Mac Mini, which is also shared with the 8 graphics cores compared to an additional 32 gigs of DDR6 memory for the W6900X's 80 graphics cores. So with 8 times the amount of cores and way more dedicated video memory, how much faster is this beast of a pro graphics card? Well, in terms of raw performance, we have 22.2 teraflops compared to 2.6 teraflops, so it actually lines up almost perfectly with 8.5 times the raw performance. Now, some of you know this is a big Navi GPU, so it's using 7nm cores with the best efficiency from AMD, with a 50% performance per watt improvement compared to the previous Vega. But even still, in order to achieve this much power requires 300 watts for the GPU, whereas the M1's graphics max out at 5.6 watts. So it takes about 53 times the power to achieve 8.5 times the performance, but that still doesn't tell the whole story. You also have to factor in efficiency once you use a graphics API and what you are doing. So using Geekbench 5's Metal Compute test, which does a bunch of different tasks, we see a massive difference of 22,000 compared to 170,000, which is about 7.5 times faster. Still a huge performance difference. In terms of gaming workloads, running BaseMark's Metal Gaming benchmark shows us a difference of 7 times. So as you can see, even after efficiency losses, the W6900X absolutely destroys the M1's graphics. Of course, we also have other differences like the CPUs. The M1 has 4 powerful cores and 4 slower efficiency cores compared to 12 high-performance cores in the Mac Pro, which use almost 200 watts at full load compared to just 15. Running a mixed workload, the 12-core Mac Pro is about 60% faster than the M1 Mini, which is also a big difference, but it's shocking to see just how much performance Apple squeezes out of the M1 chip with only 15 watts. In a single intensive rendering workload, the difference jumps to about 80%, which is huge. In taking a look at score per watt, we see that the M1 gets 591 points per watt compared to just 73 in the Mac Pro, but that is all right because the Mac Pro is all about maximum performance. These two machines couldn't be any more different. One is about brute force raw power, while the other is about maximizing performance while having relatively low specs. So now let's see just how much better the real world performance of this $6,000 graphics card paired with a $10,000 Mac Pro is compared to the measly $890 Mac Mini, right after I thank our sponsor, Squarespace. If you've been thinking about making your own website, Squarespace is seriously the best way to go. You can build a great looking website like we did with literally no web making experience. It doesn't matter if you want a portfolio, a blog, e-commerce, or anything else. You simply choose a template, customize blocks of text and images, and easily move them around. It's incredibly simple, it's affordable, and ours have been running flawlessly for over 3 years, bringing bringing in tons of traffic thanks to its built-in SEO tools. Start your free 2-week trial with no credit card required by going to squarespace.com/maxtech or by using our custom link down below. And when you're ready to launch, you will save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Now, I'll be focusing on graphics-based tasks since many CPU-based tasks are actually slower on the Mac Pro, even though it has up to 80% more performance, because many of these don't max out the cores and also rely on single core performance that is much slower on the Mac Pro. As you've seen before, Photoshop takes just 3 seconds to open compared to 6 on the Pro, Lightroom takes 4 seconds instead of 8, and the editing is actually smoother. Other tasks like open up WAV files are almost twice as fast, and denoising them like we do daily is also way faster. Opening up files and applications are also faster thanks to the SSD now being just as fast but with better single core performance, and even web browsing is noticeably snappier. The most shocking one is Xcode, which is CPU based and maxes both of them out, where the M1 is actually faster than the Mac Pro thanks to software and hardware efficiency. So where does this extra brute power come in? Well, let's take a look at programs that need both the CPU and the GPU. Starting with Final Cut, I tested out BruceX, which shows how the raw graphics performance translates into pure video rendering performance without using encoders, and we see a difference of 3 times in favor of the Mac Pro, which is interesting because the raw performance is over 8 times faster. Next, I stabilized a 1-minute long 4K HEVC clip, and the Mac Pro only took 8 seconds. That is almost 7 times faster than real time, which is crazy, and the short clips that we typically work with will be finished in basically a second. So how long did the Mac Mini take? 9 seconds. Yes, a whole second faster than the system that costs 18 times more money. Talk about efficiency. The same thing goes for exporting regular 4K footage with multiple LUTs and even film grain applied. The Mac Pro takes 2 minutes and 28 seconds, which is super fast, but the Mini is not far behind, just taking 36 seconds longer compared to the previous Mini that took over 12 minutes. Switching to the more efficient HEVC codec, the difference is even smaller. In fact, it is now in favor of the M1 Mini, taking 2 minutes and 25 seconds compared to 2 minutes 30 seconds. Now, I know what some of you guys are gonna say, this $6,000 graphics card is overkill for this type of work, while at the same time the Mini is perfectly optimized while being relatively weak in specs, and you are absolutely right. So I decided to throw much harder workloads at these systems, but even then, when it is slower, the difference isn't as large as you would expect looking at the raw performance and the prices. The first was 4 4K files oversampled into a 4K timeline, each with film grain and 2 LUTs applied, with 2 clips being reversed. This is a test that I haven't used in years because it was just too difficult. The Mac Pro took 4 minutes and 35 seconds to render this intense 5-minute project, while the Mac Mini took 9 minutes and 15 seconds, being severely limited by its graphics. So not 8 times faster, but twice. Now, I thought that 4K Prores Raw files would also be much faster with the Mac Pro and this new graphics card, but not really. Exporting a graded 5-minute project took just 2 minutes and 4 seconds, but the Mini wasn't far off at 2 minutes and 55 seconds, CPU and GPU being fully utilized. Since the M1 is maxed out here, what happens if we throw graded 4K Prores Raw at it and export with the largest and highest quality codec? Well, it really slows down, taking 35 minutes for a 5-minute project, but it is still only 3 times slower when I expected much more of a difference. To push this even further, I thought of the toughest thing in video editing, something that I excluded in the past because it was just too painstakingly slow, and that is denoising 4K Prores Raw clips. Surprisingly, even with the W6900X, you cannot get real-time playback, so you have to render, and to render a 15-second clip takes 9 minutes and 39 seconds. Yeah, that is very difficult to render, but the M1 Mini took about 50 minutes to render. And I say about because I couldn't make myself wait for it to finish, but basically it moved 1% every 30 seconds. So what about outside of video editing? Well, the biggest reason to buy one of these is for 3D rendering, and man, is this thing much faster than the previous best single graphics card, the Vega 2. Rendering in Octane, the standard trench project, takes just 22 seconds to render compared to 51 seconds with the Vega 2 and 2 minutes and 24 seconds for the M1. And for the chest scene, just 12 seconds for the W6900X and 1 minute and 42 seconds for the M1 Mini. Yeah, 12 seconds. That is an insane difference, and if we do the math, that actually comes out to 8.5 times faster performance, which is exactly what we see in the raw teraflops. So this is where the $6,000 graphics card really comes in. For photo and video editing, the Mac Pro used to be worth it, but after optimizations and the M1s, unless you're doing insane stuff, it just is no longer worth it. For those of you that do 3D rendering every single day, that is where the brute force of this $6,000 graphics card really comes in, and where it is worth spending the money. Now, I'm not sure if the software can be optimized for M1 Max any further, just like photo and video editing software was. But until that happens, this is where people are still gonna have to buy Mac Pros with high core counts and crazy expensive graphics cards like these ones. Now, of course, for our work, even for high-end video editing, for example, 10-bit footage from the R5 or the A7S II, the Mac Mini is actually faster at rendering this out. And not only that, it's way smoother at playing it back as well, because these high-end graphics cards still don't have the proper decoding chips built into them to handle this footage, so it is choppy and you actually have to transcode the footage before editing. And when you're transcoding, it still takes way longer, about 2.5 times longer to transcode. I thought that with this new graphics card, the Mac Pro might be worth keeping if it was going to be much faster for our workload, but as you guys see, because the encoders and decoders haven't been changed, and because software being a limitation with these codecs, it really doesn't give you that much extra performance. And what it really has me wondering is, how much faster are the new M1X Max going to be when they get rid of their main issue, which is raw graphics performance? And keep in mind, the M1 graphics, the 8-core that's in here, that is the slowest Apple graphics chip that they're ever going to be making for the M1, and it's designed for efficiency, not maximum performance. So when Apple starts targeting that, how insane are those chips going to be? Go ahead and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Go ahead and click that circle above if you guys want to subscribe to help us reach 1 million subscribers, which would be amazing. Check out one of those great videos right over there. This has been Max, and I will see you guys in the next video.